When you're a business competing with other businesses, the best you can ask for is a level playing field, right? Well, that's not happening at all for hotels and motels. For example, they have to add sales tax and a bed tax when they price a room. But the short-term rental just down the street doesn't. Some North Country towns are starting to address this disparity, but they're finding it's easier said than done. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from the St. Lawrence County Community Development Program, now accepting applications for the Head Start program to prepare children ages 3 to 5 for school. Online at slccdp.org/head-start.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Tuesday, October 15th. First up, 2 horses in the town of Alexandria, Jefferson County, have tested positive for Eastern equine encephalitis in a week. The Jefferson County Public Health Department says one of the horses was not vaccinated. The other was not up to date on its vaccine. Triple E is a virus spread to horses and humans by infected mosquitoes. There is a vaccine for horses, but not for people. While a serious infection is rare in humans, it can be fatal. 2 people in the Northeast have died from Triple E this year. One of those was in the Hudson Valley. Public health officials have been encouraging people to protect themselves against mosquito bites. Cover up when you're outside, wear EPA-registered bug spray, and remove standing water from your property. School districts and organizations around the state will receive $1.5 million for farm-to-school programs. The programs aim to connect schools in New York with farmers and get more locally grown food into school lunches. State Agriculture Commissioner Richard Ball says he wants to get students curious about the food industry.
Ag education to our youngest New Yorkers. Those are going to be the next generation of leaders here in New York, and it's important that they know where their food comes from.
Ball says the farm-to-school program strengthens the state's supply chain for food, boosts local farmers, and helps feed young people in underserved communities. Short-term rentals, like on Airbnb or Vrbo, have exploded in popularity over the last decade. North Country communities have been grappling with how to regulate them. Many towns have created short-term rental registries or adopted regulations that limit how they can be run. But today, we're going to look at another piece of the regulatory puzzle: taxes. Some counties tax STRs, but others don't. Amy Feiereisel reports on the money being left on the table and a possible statewide solution.
In New York State, hotels and motels charge up to a 4% occupancy tax, also known as the bed tax. It's additional money paid by guests, collected by the county, and used to further promote tourism in the area. But in terms of short-term rentals collecting occupancy tax, it's still a bit of a gray area.
The state of New York has been grappling with this for a while.
That's Phil Reed, a Jefferson County legislator.
But currently there's a patchwork of counties that have laws. They're all different.
For example, Jefferson County collects occupancy tax from operations with 6 units or more. That excludes most short-term rentals. Reed says that's felt increasingly unfair to local motels, hotels, and resorts, who are having to charge 4% more than STRs.
In my district, I don't have any name brand hotels. They're making their beds, cutting their grass, working in their kitchens, and they're asking for a level playing field with their competitors.
And short-term rentals are a big competitor these days. Sites like Airbnb and Vrbo were a $20 billion industry last year, making up about 15% of the vacation rental market. That's double what it was just 5 years ago. We've seen that growth here in the North Country, where short-term rentals have become controversial for crowding out local renters and buyers. Communities like Saranac Lake, Lake Placid, Lake George, and Wilmington have all passed local STR regulations. And some counties have started taking short-term rentals as a revenue source a lot more seriously, like Warren County, which includes tourist hotspot Lake George.
Short-term rentals are growing, and they're cannibalizing, not a lot at this point in time, but they're taking business away from the hotels, motels, and resorts. There's no doubt about it.
That's Christine Norton, the treasurer of Warren County, which collects about $7 million in occupancy tax each year. It started requiring short-term rentals to collect occupancy tax in 2018. But Norton says the county only started enforcing that in 2021 under her predecessor, Mike Swan.
That's when they really started to say, okay, can people please register? And a lot of people did. And I would say 80 to 90% of the people do the right thing.
But some didn't. That's when Swan paid for a software service called Granicus, which combs the internet for short-term rental listings. That helped the county identify who hadn't registered.
That equated to about 250 new registrants that within a year's time brought in $500,000 of revenue.
Norton says it was well worth the county's initial investment, which was about $30,000. And she's continuing Swan's work.
I'm a big fan of automation. I mean, it helps you boil an ocean, down to what you need.
Norton also plans to start fining unregistered STRs. If this all seems like a lot of work, it is. And for some counties, it's not worth it.
We're really not that big. We're not Essex County. We don't have Lake Placid.
That's Kimberly Davis, the treasurer of Clinton County, where they charge 3% occupancy tax and short-term rentals are included. Clinton County collected just under $1 million of occupancy tax last year.
So at this point, we're still small enough with the vacation rentals to kind of be able to do it on our own.
Clinton County has a voluntary agreement with Airbnb to let the platform collect occupancy tax for them and write them a check each year. This is something a lot of counties have opted into. It's easy, but it's probably leaving money on the table. What about STRs on other platforms? They're supposed to register and pay occupancy tax manually. It's basically an honor system.
The compliance issue is it's on the person doing it to do, what is right and what is the law.
Now, that could be changing soon if a state bill that passed in both the House and Senate is signed into law by Governor Kathy Hochul. It's been sitting on her desk since this spring. The bill would create a statewide registry for short-term rentals. That would change the game and make STRs operate a lot more like hotels and motels. It would also require them to start charging sales tax, which they currently don't. But Davis has doubts about how it would all be enforced.
Is it going to be up to the state police to enforce this? I doubt it. Is it going to be up to the sheriff? Or would it be up to, our office, since we deal with the vacation rentals and we're not, police officers?
In Warren County, Christine Norton is a fan of the bill. She says the county would take in an additional $1.2 million in sales tax, and the statewide registry would mean a lot less internet sleuthing for her office. She says STRs should contribute their fair share because occupancy tax is used to further promote tourism in the county.
100% of those funds are meant to be used back into the community, back into the county to promote further tourism. So like the Adirondack Balloon Festival, Americade.
If the state bill isn't signed, and giants like Airbnb have been lobbying heavily against it, short-term rentals will continue to operate on this patchwork basis, where counties will have to decide when it's worth the effort to keep track of them. Amy Feiereisel, North Country Public Radio.
NCPR's fall fundraiser is right now. We're raising $365,000 to do the basics for public radio. Pay for programs like All Things Considered, get our North Country reporters into the field, do the research, and produce the incisive local stories that you expect here on Story of the Day. And this whole endeavor is a listener-funded thing. 75% of our budget comes from listeners and local business owners just like you. It takes all of us to keep public radio financially viable. So please do your part now at ncpr.org/give. Make a donation at ncpr.org/give and help keep NCPR and local journalism strong. Thank you so much. Music today by Danny Thomas of Canton and Dan Bergeron of Ballston Spa. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.